it's producer Mark at KCMO Talk Radio, and if you're an NFL or college football fan, check out my weekly sports betting podcasts. Search College Pick'em Program or Sunday Sharps wherever you get your podcasts, and hit that subscribe button for my weekly picks, including the Chiefs, Mizzou, Kansas, and K-State. Now here's the Mundo in the Morning podcast.
Well, we're here for tour stop number 8 of Back the Blue. We kicked this thing off 2 years ago in Clay County, and we are back up north at the Platte County Sheriff's Office here as we get it rolling, 6:05 on a Friday morning on 95.7 FM KCMO. You are going to hear some of the great folks who work here with the Platte County Sheriff's Department. You will hear those stories throughout the morning. So we will get that going here in about 10 minutes on KCMO. Of course, we're streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app, the iHeart app, your Alexa, and your Google Home. We've got our great engineer, Chris Castro, on site with us here. We've got Mark and John back in the studios this morning. So all is well, and it is great to be out on the road, as always, for Back the Blue Tour Stop number 8. And as always, thanks to our presenting sponsors over at Window World for helping make this happen. So we'll start the show off, though, with the big news that you heard there at the top of the hour that came down yesterday. And that was the resignation, or I guess you would say Matt Gaetz removing himself from consideration as the next Attorney General of the United States. And this is a great move for everybody involved, from Donald Trump to Matt Gaetz to us, the American people. The nominating process was always going to be ugly. The confirmation process was always going to be hairy for Matt Gaetz if he was going to be the next AG. And it would have been just a massive distraction for everybody involved. I mean, here's Donald Trump trying to get off and running as he starts his second term coming up in a couple of months, and this would have taken all the oxygen out of the room. And for what? For a guy who's barely done any prosecuting his entire life? What would the purpose of this have been? Why would you have used all this political equity and capital on Matt Gaetz? I mean, there's plenty of very competent people. Trump got one yesterday, and Pam Bondi, who we'll talk about here in a second, who could have done this job. Why would you have wasted this amount of political equity and capital on Matt Gaetz? It never made any sense, right? So yesterday, Matt Gaetz announces at about 11 o'clock in the morning that he's done. And notice what he said here. He didn't go out there and start blaming, traitors inside the party. He had a very milquetoast, very subdued by Matt Gaetz' standard post that he put on X. He wrote, "I had an excellent meeting with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There's no time to waste in a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one." So he didn't say, I'm calling out all the rhinos and the haters. It's like, no, he just literally was like, I tried. I had some momentum. Whether or not that's true or not doesn't really matter. And it's not going to happen for me, so I'm going to go away. Thanks, everybody. See you later. That's what Matt Gaetz did. So he's not calling out anybody in his own party, which he has never been afraid to do, which tells me this was always his plan. Get out ahead of this House ethics report, get nominated AG, resign his seat in Congress before the report came out, and then, knowing full well it was highly unlikely he was ever going to make it as the Attorney General, he could then basically put himself in a position where he left Congress. Yep. Because what else did Matt Gaetz do? Well, he resigned his seat, right? He resigned his seat the same day that Trump nominated him as AG. No one else has done that. Marco Rubio didn't do that as senator. Mike Waltz, who's also a Florida congressman, who is Trump's pick for national security advisor, he's still a member of Congress. The only guy who's done this is Matt Gaetz. So now the puzzle is not just coming together. It always came together like this, John, but you're seeing very clearly how the pieces have gone together for him over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think Matt Gaetz is kind of tiptoeing out of the room like you do when you don't want to wake the baby.
Yes.
We don't want to do anything to, have any things come out, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of sliding on out.
Well, that's me every morning with the 8-month-old tipping down the stairs and being like, God, don't, that damn step is creaking again. So you're right. And this is very unusual for Matt Gaetz to go away with some grace and do anything, frankly, with some grace. Right. So he's doing it, and that tells me this was always the plan. And even Trump didn't really fight this thing. He just wrote yesterday on X, I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz. He was doing well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much great respect. Trump's like, okay, not going to happen. He didn't start calling anybody out. He didn't say, we've got the Uniparty going up against and stopping Matt Gaetz. He's like, it wasn't going to happen, which tells me I wonder if he was also well aware this was never going to happen, and this was a way to help out someone who's been very loyal to him over the years. And now Matt Gaetz just basically goes away, and these reports don't come out, and maybe he starts some kind of a media venture, career, but I don't see how he's got any future in politics, considering he's resigned his seat, and he said nothing yesterday about going back to his congressional seat, which he just won re-election in a couple of weeks ago.
Right. Yeah, if he'd have been around, right, the Dems and liberal media, legacy media would have made we say they make a meal out of it. This would have been dim sum, the Chinese many courses.
Very well done there. Now, Pam Bondi was the pick. She's the former Attorney General for the state of Florida. And she's great. I mean, I was watching some of her clips last night and doing some research on Pam Bondi, who has also been very loyal to the president-elect, and they know each other very well. She's defended him in court before. And I found this clip from her as Florida AG when she was talking about the illegal immigration issue. And take a listen to this. She is going to take no crap when she gets in there and gets confirmed, and she will get confirmed.
These criminals made one very big mistake. They wound up in Polk County. And I'll tell you, it's bad enough in one thing to profit from poisoning others, but it's another when you bring drugs from Mexico into our country, California, Texas, Georgia, and end up in our state and do it with impunity. Because when you're in this country illegally and you're doing things illegally, I want to tell you, and you wind up in Polk County, Grady Judd is going to find you, the DEA is going to help them, and my statewide prosecutors are going to lock you up for as long as we can.
And we're going to enjoy it.
And each of these defendants are looking at 30 years in Florida State Prison for conspiracy to traffic drugs.
I like that guy in the background, and we're going to enjoy it. That was great. Whoever he is, he's got to make sure he's got a job here with the Pam Bondi DOJ. But she does not take any crap. She was the 37th Attorney General in Florida under Rick Scott from 2011 to 2019, and she also did some work, as I noted, with Donald Trump on the private side. So she's going to walk in there, and she is going to be the shakeup that the DOJ desperately needs, right? And there were plenty of people that were suited and qualified to do this job. She was one of many people. I mean, I heard people mentioning names like Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, who are also getting attention. The current Missouri Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, was also getting some attention for this role. But this is a no-brainer. This makes life so much easier. And I will get to more stories throughout the hour and throughout the show where you will hear from people on the other side who do not like Pam Bondi because they know she's going to be effective, she's going to get confirmed, and she's going to be damn good at her job. So everybody won yesterday. The American people won. Of course, the president-elect won. Matt Gaetz won, whether you like that or not. He's out. He got what he wanted out of this. And Pam Bondi, obviously, a big winner as well. We are here in Platte County. We're in Kansas City, Missouri, up by the airport at the Sheriff's Department up this way. So we are at Back to Blue tour stop number 8. You will hear from about 8 guests this morning from the Sheriff's Department. And we are going to start things off coming up next with Deputy Hannah Blacklock. She is a school resource officer, a crisis negotiator, and she will join us to get Back to Blue tour stop number 8 rolling from the Platte County Sheriff's Department, coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And we are presented all morning long by our friends over at Window World. We have great guests still to come here on KCMO. It'll be a busy 8 and 9 o'clock hour. We're going to talk to Kendall Gammon, get you set for the Chiefs game this weekend, so that is coming up in our usual Friday 7:05 slot right after the top of the hour. I did find, and I know this was a stunner, a halfway decent editorial in the Kansas City Star. Where's my boy Mitch McConnell to talk about a bombshell? I just could not believe that.
Talk about a bombshell.
Yeah, who saw that coming? Since I'm not at the studio this morning, I got to have Mark reading my mind for my drops today. So good job there, Mark. That was quick.
Thank you.
So it comes from our good friend Patrick Toohey over at the Show Me Institute, Missouri-based think tank. And he wrote about this proposal by Quentin Lucas. And the proposal was to tax vacant lots in Kansas City. The mayor threw this out, a week and a half ago on social media. And, we talked about a lot yesterday with him. I've got to make sure I remember this for next week. But it is just a bad idea start to finish. Nothing about it is a good idea. And Patrick Toohey put it very well in this piece in the Kansas City Star. I am shocked the Kansas City Star allowed anybody with this level of common sense to write something like this in their newspaper. This is more common sense in a single column in the Kansas City Star than they've had front to back on the newspaper over the last month combined. Now, it's not hard to do, but still. So Toohey writes here, fresh from traveling around the country for Kamala Harris's ill-fated presidential campaign, Mayor Lucas has returned home to discover vacant lots. The horror. He adds here, shocked by the new discovery, Lucas suggested a tax to put those lots to a higher and better use almost immediately. Now, here's the kicker, and this is a great point by Toohey. It may not surprise you to learn that a lot of those vacant properties in Kansas City belong to ... Kansas City. The city's land bank owns 2,900 properties, many of which are vacant. Lucas was sworn in as mayor 5 years ago. If he has a higher and better use in mind for all of those city-owned properties, let's hear it. When the land bank was created back in 2012, proponents argued it was necessary to centralize control over Kansas City's vast inventory of abandoned and tax-delinquent properties. At the time, they were managed by the Jackson County Land Trust. Adding another layer of government control was supposed to streamline the process. Instead, it has done the opposite. The land bank is tasked with acquiring properties, maintaining them, and eventually selling them to individuals or developers willing to put them to good use. But as the mayor found out, and as anyone who has driven through Kansas City can tell you, the results are hard to see. Lots of empty lots remain, abandoned houses continue to decay, and neighborhoods struggle under the weight of blight that the land bank was supposed to address. This is so well written by Patrick Toohey over at the Show Me Institute because he's right. And, if you are a Kansas City resident, if you are somebody who works in whether it's development, whether it's building, whether it's construction, you know as well as anybody, the city is not friendly when it comes to just small developers, small construction workers who want to do things like maybe take over a vacant lot, put up some housing on it. Heck, Habitat for Humanity, who I've done a lot of work with here in town, they will have issues. They won't say it publicly. I get it. They got to play nice, but I don't really care. They will struggle with Kansas City's rules and regulations. I worked with them extensively over several years here in town, and they've got their issues trying to cut through some of the bureaucracy and red tape that is Kansas City, Missouri. So all these things that you look at, you say to yourself, let's make it easier for private developers to take over vacant lots in Kansas City and put them to use. Instead, what the mayor's plan is here is to tax them, basically make it so unappealing to keep these lots vacant that they do something with them. which is just, once again, the government, which is already too involved, which has caused people to not want to develop, get more involved, and basically twist your arm to do something with the land, even though it may not be profitable for you to do anything with the land. Think about that, right? What we should be doing is cutting red tape, cutting bureaucracy, and allowing these lots to be put to use. Even if there's not all the green energy nonsense mandates that the city is demanding. I mean, trust me, we've talked to many folks who are in this line of work, and you can get in now at 913-408-7957. It's 913-408-7957. But there's plenty of people who do this for a living who have told us on this show, who have told us at our events, who have told me through email, through social media, that it has become so difficult to get any kind of work done in Kansas City, Missouri. It's just not worth their time and effort. Unless, of course, you're one of the big developers and you're building the next Light, which I see is being proposed, or the new 25-story building at $800,000 downtown that got a lot of attention this week. Now, they're also likely going to be working on things like abatements. They'll be getting, obviously, deals and whatnot as time goes on. So that's a whole nother level. But when you're talking about these vacant lots around Kansas City, Missouri, it's just different, right? It's not going to be done by the big developers that are building downtown. It's mostly going to have to be smaller folks, smaller organizations who just want to maybe do a flip here and there and make a few bucks. And they should have no issue doing that. They should be encouraged to do that, not taxed into doing it. Meantime, as they note here in the article in the Kansas City Star, the Show Me Institute cataloged the failings of the land bank in St. Louis, how it was used by politically connected speculators, how it drove up prices by bidding against private buyers, and how it failed at its main task of getting publicly owned land into the hands of private owners. Kansas City leaders argued they could learn lessons from St. Louis. If they did, they learned the wrong ones. Several independent media investigations of the Kansas City Land Bank found an entity chock full of conflicts of interest, property hoarding, and operational failures. Also, totally shocking. Part of the problem remains the bureaucracy itself. Selling off the properties involves red tape that discourages potential buyers. Worse, there have been allegations of favoritism and political interference within the Kansas City Land Bank, and transparency remains another huge issue. Tui ends the piece saying a new tax will not solve this, a new city agency or staff member won't solve this, pointing the finger at others won't solve this. The issue, like so many others in Kansas City, requires leadership and action, not campaigning. Damn, that is good from Patrick Tui. Real good. I texted Tui this morning. I wanted to try to get him on the show to talk about this briefly. I just texted him, "You up?" ? Which probably sounds like I'm hitting on him or trying to pick him up, but that really wasn't my intention. It was just to see if he's awake to get him on the show, because the article dropped this morning in the Kansas City Star at 5 a.m. So it's a brand new piece that he put up, and, it was a good one. Now, staying in Kansas City, I saw the city was very proud of this yesterday afternoon. They put up a post on X, and it read here, "For the fourth year in a row, we have earned a perfect score of 100% on the Human Rights Campaign's Municipal Equality Index. This recognition highlights our commitment to creating a diverse and inclusive community for all." And it just says 100% MEI, Municipal Equality Score, for a fourth straight year. Okay, that's great. I mean, everybody should be accepted. Right? I totally agree with that. There should be no bias against anybody. We should have a diverse and inclusive. Who doesn't agree with that, right? But I promise you, nobody is building, nobody is developing because of your MEI score. You still have a city that is really struggling with homicides, is coming off a month of October that had 2,600 property crimes. 2,600 property crimes. When it comes to homicides per capita, it's top 10 in the country. But hey, have you seen the MEI score lately? Have you seen that Municipal Equality Index? We got 100%. Okay, what's your red tape like to build? What's your homicide numbers? What are your property crimes?
But hey, John, that
yeah.
You come in, welcome to Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, when you come into the airport, you do hear the mayor's voice, so maybe he'll start bragging about the MEI score up there. I don't know. That's entirely possible. But it does also feel like it's wokeism on its last leg. I mean, I don't know who would ever care about the MEI score. Yeah, let's treat people with respect and dignity, and those are all things that just decent human beings should do every single day. Why are we and how are we even scoring cities based on these made-up criterias that don't mean anything to most normal people? Like, what are you going to do? Walk around and be like, this city's got a great municipal equality index. Top of the line MEI, baby. Things that, once again, the average normal person isn't thinking about, but woke bureaucrats are. We are live at the Platte County Sheriff's Department here on KCMO Talk Radio. Back the Blue tour stop number 8 rolls along. It is presented by our good friends and good partners over at Window World. Our next guest is going to be Eric Zond, the Platte County prosecutor. He will be here in about 20 minutes on KCMO. The big news story from a national perspective that is taking over the headlines, you just heard Bill O'Reilly talk about it, is that Matt Gaetz, of course, is not going to be the next attorney general. And instead, Donald Trump has turned to Pam Bondi, who is the former attorney general in the state of Florida. She has done work on behalf of Donald Trump in a personal capacity. And frankly, she is more suited for the role than Matt Gaetz ever was. Matt Gaetz, I think he had spent as much time in the courtroom as I had prosecuting cases, which is none. I've never spent time in a law school in my life unless I got lost somewhere along the line. That's it.
I think Joe
Yes,
Pesci
John.
had more time in the courtroom than my cousin Vinny, right?
I think you're right about that. Oh, gosh. I mean, Matt Gaetz was never worth the headache, but it clearly worked out exactly how Matt Gaetz wanted it to. He got the appointment. He resigned his seat in Congress before the House ethics report came out, and now he's off to the races. I mean, you're already seeing people who are like, well, he's going to go back to Congress. No, he's not. No, he's not. He wanted out. This was his off-ramp. He's not going to the Senate either. If you think, this is 4D chess, and what's going to happen is, Matt Gaetz is now going to be appointed senator to replace Marco Rubio. He's going to be the Secretary of State, and oh my gosh, 4D chess. No. Stop. It's not 4D chess. Because if he goes back to the Senate, guess what happens? The investigations from the House just continue on.
Yep.
They've got an ethics committee too, okay?
More likely that Matt Gaetz will be working at Gaetz. Hi, may I help you? Right. Then going back, right?
I'm not sure he's got the look they go for, but either way,
yeah.
He would be good at that. He can be loud, I guess. That's one trait of his that is, certainly there.
Greeting, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Pam Bondi is going to go in there, and she's going to shake it up. And she is going to kick serious butt as the head of the DOJ, and she will get approved and appointed and confirmed, no doubt in my mind. And you can tell that when MSNBC is melting down about Pam Bondi, it's a darn good pick. Take a listen to this. MSNBC yesterday, they seem actually more concerned about Pam Bondi than they did Matt Gaetz. See, they wanted Matt Gaetz. They wanted to make the whole Matt Gaetz confirmation process a spectacle coming up in January. They don't have it anymore. It's done. It's over. And I believe this was always part of the plan in many ways from Trump. He didn't want this distraction. So let's take a listen to Jason Johnson when it comes to what he said about Pam Bondi being the next AG.
Pam Bondi is exactly what I was saying in the last segment that we should all fear, because she's competent. We may not agree with her ideologically, but she actually knows how to do this job. So if anyone on the Democratic side or anyone who cared about liberty or justice was thinking, well, maybe Matt Gaetz will screw this up and that'll give us some time. No, Pam Bondi knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing about immigration. Remember, Florida is one of those states that's been very aggressive about migrants and deportation and moving people to different states and everything else like that. Florida has enacted all sorts of rules and laws to curtail students and what they can do on campuses and finding legal justifications for manipulating education money. She is a dangerous and effective pick, and that's frankly worse than what we would have got with Matt Gaetz, even with the deplorable moral background that he has.
Yeah, and I want to discuss that with a little more depth with both of you, including her record on civil rights, LGBTQ rights, and other issues that are front and center at the DOJ, and which we know were also big campaign issues.
Okay, that is quite an endorsement from Jason Johnson, MSNBC. Worse than Gaetz. That's the best endorsement I've heard. That's a great endorsement. Pam Bondi is worse than Matt Gaetz, according to Talking Heads on MSNBC. How quickly can we confirm her? Because once again, as Jason Johnson says there on MSNBC, she is dangerously effective as a pick. She knows what she's doing, he says, about immigration. We should fear her because she's competent. See, they wanted Matt Gaetz because he wouldn't have really known what he was doing. I mean, he would have maybe had the right attitude when he got in there, but he wasn't really someone who was up to the job, I don't believe, and he wouldn't have really known how to go about the job. There would have been a big learning curve there. Pam Bondi, she's been the AG of Florida. She's a loyalist to Donald Trump. She's going to go in day one, get confirmed quickly, and know what to do to clean the place up. 913-408-7957. Let's go to you, Olathe. That's where Mike is on a Friday. Happy Friday, Mike. What's going on, my man?
Hey, brother, you needed another guy in his 60s to come on and take over for John's little puns he was making there. The local thing to Gaetz, he's usually great, but today I told him, I said, hey, it's a slightly lame response. But listen, but I love it. You guys
don't let John's head get too big back there, okay? Don't let it get too big.
You got to keep him humble back there, buddy. But hey, we're old, we have to be humble. Hey, listen, this is a strategy, I believe, first and foremost. Number one, and I was going to comment on that clip you just showed because I saw that this morning. So the Democrats, the word is opposite day, because if it's worse, that means it's better. Because if it's bad for Democrats, it's better for the country. Number one. Number two, and last thing, it's a female. Go, go, go. It's a woman. Nobody said that even. She's not only a great attorney general, she's a woman. So it just takes a couple things off, and it isn't because he didn't hire her because she's a woman. He hired her because she's great for the job, which is a concept the left has no idea of how to implement.
Yeah, that's a good point there, Mike. Thank you very much. But I thought Donald Trump, I was told by Mark Cuban, did not surround himself with strong women. Isn't that what Mark Cuban said? Boy, he continues to be wrong. His chief of staff, Susie Wiles, first female chief of staff in the history of the White House, and now Pam Bondi, Attorney General, likely to be the next Attorney General. So, geez, so much for that from Mark Cuban, a.k.a. Rosie O'Donnell. I can't tell them apart anymore. 913-408-7957. At least my engineer gets a kick out of that here. I got a live audience of one. Pete Mundo on KCMO live in Platte County. What everyone's buzzing about today is obviously the news that came down yesterday, which is Matt Gaetz dropping out as the attorney of Donald Trump. And, of course, going with Pam Bondi, the former Florida AG who has represented Donald Trump in a personal capacity before. She was the AG from 2011 and 2019 under Rick Scott. Did a great job in that role. And this works out best for everybody. This works out for Matt Gaetz. I believe he got what he wanted. He was named the AG. He then dropped out as a member of the House of Representatives, which was bizarre, and it came days before this House ethics report was set to come out. And then, of course, he pulls out yesterday, and he didn't knock anybody, right? If you read the statement from Matt Gaetz, he wasn't like, everyone's here to screw me, and I'm getting stabbed in the back, but I'm doing my best, and unfortunately it looks like all the uniparty people are not going to let me be the next Attorney General. He didn't say any of that. He came out with a very reasonable statement, and it's because I think he knew this is how it was going to go, and he was okay with how it was going to go. He said, I had excellent meetings with senators. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. Momentum was strong. It's clear my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction, and there's no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. That, for Matt Gaetz, that is a milquetoast response. He has never been a guy who is going to not pull punches and not punch back at people and call them out specifically. So why would he do that? Think about that. Why would he do that? Because this was part of the plan. He was totally okay with the fact that he was never going to be the Attorney General. and he knew it. He knew it deep down. But I state the obvious, right? I mean, it's beyond obvious how this played out, especially now that Gaetz didn't even get close to a confirmation. He met with some senators over the last couple of days, and that was it. And then he puts out a response where he's like, too bad. Not going to happen for me. Trump puts out a statement saying, appreciate Matt Gaetz, and we don't want him to be a distraction, and we appreciate it, and he's got a bright future. Neither of them attacked. You know that both of those guys, if they wanted to, would have attacked the senators who would have voted against a confirmation of Matt Gaetz. Why would they elect not to do it? Because this is how they knew it was going to play out, and they were fine with it playing out this way, and Trump probably thinks deep down he's got a better AG pick in Pam Bondi anyway. But that doesn't stop. And I get it, whatever. I mean, we'll put on our big boy pants here, but I'm rolling through some of your text line comments. And here we go. This is on X from Matt. It says here, Pete Mundo is not a conservative voice that should be listened to. Hashtag Rhino. Oh, I got it. I was waiting all morning for it. Okay. I know that it is, for some simpletons, it is really that easy. And I said to myself as I just reposted on X, bleep, they caught me again. Eye roll emoji. This is not about, if you think Pam Bondi is some kind of a rhino, if you think that Trump settled for a rhino pick, then you're actually insulting Donald Trump here is what you're doing. Think about that. If the rhino move is to say this worked out well for Matt Gaetz, which it did, and now Trump has to settle for a rhino, then you are insulting Donald Trump. And if you don't know the rhino acronym, it's Republican in name only. Same thing on the text line. Pete, you're right in line with Lindsey Graham and Mitt Romney. Okay. Yes, that is why Donald Trump acquiesced very quickly to Matt Gaetz stepping down and appointed Pam Bondi, the ultimate rhino. I get it. It's easy. It's convenient. You can call people names, and that's fine. I mean, I'm here for it. We're all going to make it. It's going to be just okay. But let's actually go blow by blow here and analyze this thing for what it was. And it was always a perfect setup for Matt Gaetz to get out. Why did he resign from Congress the same day that he got appointed AG? Mike Walz, another congressman out of Florida, who was named by Donald Trump to be his national security advisor. Why did he not resign from Congress the same day? Why did Marco Rubio not resign from the Senate the same day? He was appointed Secretary of State. Why would Matt Gaetz, knowing he was going to have a tough confirmation process, resign from the House? And also, he has said nothing about going back to his House seat. He hasn't even said he wants it back. Call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for dinner. But why would he do that? Because this is what he wanted. It's just common sense, and it's okay that that's what he wanted. He got out of it. I genuinely think that Matt Gaetz is getting exactly what he wanted. So if he's happy with this, and he has supported Pam Bondi, so how is that an indictment on me or anyone else when Matt Gaetz says Pam Bondi is going to make a great attorney general? Please help me square that. He writes here, last night, Matt Gaetz on X, she is a stellar selection. He says, Pam and I worked closely together when she was Florida's AG, and I chaired the criminal justice in the state house. She's a proven litigator, an inspirational leader, and a champion for all Americans. She will bring the needed reform to the DOJ. That is from Matt Gaetz. Trust me, this worked out exactly how he wanted it to work out. This is not up for debate. This is perfectly played out. Mm-hmm. And, John, someone asked on the text line, can you believe that Pam Bondi is the same age as John? She looks like she's the same age as Mark. Well, that is quite a compliment.
There you go.
Although I think Pam Bondi is actually a little younger than you. She's 59 years old. So you've got her by a little bit. But either way, yes. For those wondering, Pam Bondi is 59 years old, and she does look more like Mark and I than she does John. I will say that much.
There you go.
She's a real beauty.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Well done there. What do you got for me back in the studio?
Every time I see Matt Gaetz, all I hear is Beavis and Butthead live on stage at Starlight Theater, the Broadway musical. Like if they ever do it with real people, he's a shoe-in for one of the parts.
Yep. Oh, brother. This news came down late last night, very early this morning. And it's, I guess you would call him an adopted son of Kansas City. He's not one of Kansas City's own. But Jason Kelce is going to try his hand at late-night television early next year. So the announcement came during an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel's show. What a shame. I know Disney owns ABC, owns ESPN, so everybody wants to cross-promote. I understand why they did it this way. But, man, that's the worst part of the gig for Jason Kelce. He's got to go on Jimmy Kimmel's show and pretend like he's happy to be there to make this big announcement. Here's what it sounded like last night.
You have a big announcement, actually, to make.
I do,
yeah?
yes.
Please announce.
I am starting, I believe it's January 3rd. I hope it's January 3rd. But we're going to be doing a late-night show during the postseason on ESPN.
Nice.
It's going to be airing every Friday. And, when I first approached ESPN with potentially working for them, and Monday Night Football was a big part of that, Monday Night Countdown, I thought about, I loved late-night shows. I've always loved them. I remember sleepovers watching Conan O'Brien with my friends. And it's like, what are we doing here? But that was and I think for me, the biggest thing that players say they miss when they leave the sport is being around the guys, is the locker room, is the banter.
Showering with men.
I mean, listen, that's where half of the good stuff comes from, for sure. And, being able to have this, the show where we're going to have a bunch of guys up there, legends of the game, friends that I played the game with, coaches, celebrities, while also incorporating NFL Films, who's going to be a part of it. We're going to have a live band snack time, being able to play some of these iconic NFL songs. And it's going to be a celebration.
In Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, Union Transfer.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Jimmy Kimmel's show last night where Jason Kelce announced he's going to try his hand at late-night TV during the NFL postseason that will air on ESPN. Kimmel's woke audience wasn't a big fan of his showering with men joke. I don't think they like that all that much. A lot of white dudes for Harris in the audience who probably didn't appreciate that a whole lot, including, Kimmel himself. He would know a whole lot about that, I would imagine. But
and shouting
either way,
out Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, that was interesting. I grew up watching Conan. Now, I know Kimmel wasn't doing late-night TV back then. He was still doing the Man Show when he was still funny, when he had a sense of humor. And now he just has spent the last 2.5 weeks crying about Donald Trump winning an election. So he took a break from that last night to have Jason Kelce on. It's a cool idea. I don't know how well it's going to do, but I will say this much. ESPN is smartly getting into some of this more, I don't know what I would call it, personality-driven entertainment. Same thing with the Pat McAfee show, which is, frankly, the best thing they've got going for them at ESPN. Pat McAfee building shows around your big stars that are funny, that are loose, that aren't so cookie-cutter and predictable. I mean, even Stephen A. Smith's show, like the First Take stuff, that stuff was unique and different 15 years ago. It's stale now. I don't think Stephen A. is all he's hyped up to be, which is why you see him doing more news and politics lately. He's been on News Nation a bunch lately. He was on with Bill O'Reilly and Chris Cuomo the other night on News Nation. I think Stephen A. knows that when it comes to sports, he's gotten stale. He's got to reinvent himself, which is smart. I appreciate him doing that. We all have to reinvent ourselves at some point.
Exactly.
But that model has become stale to me. It's the loose, free-flowing Pat McAfee show. Maybe this Kelce show will be like that. Gutfeld's show on Fox at 9 o'clock Central Time is kind of that freewheeling, funny, off-the-cuff. That's where it's at, John. That's what people want to consume.
Well, and you can look at it, too, like if you want to shift the focus, if you will, you can't have the Mika and Joe, hey, we're sorry, kiss the ring type stuff. So you just kind of phase people out. And you know Jason's going to bring in a more, I don't know, it's prevalent here in the Midwest, a regular guy attitude, the working guy, Joe's six-pack, right?
Yes. Oh, he will. I mean,
so you shift the network's complexion, if you will, by bringing in some people without having the old people say, sorry.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a good move from ESPN, and he is literally Joe Sixpack. I mean, the guy 2 weeks ago was at the Penn State game carrying a 30 rack around the stadium and slamming kids' cell phones who were trying to call out his brother. So
we saw him at the Buffalo game last year, the championship game, right?
Oh, yeah. That was quite a scene with his shirt off, chugging 2 beers at the same time. I mean, I've got to keep my engineer close here to me, because if not, he's going to run outside and do that up at Platte County. So I got to watch him closely. But you're right. And he is by far the funnier Kelsey. I mean, it's not close. Travis is clever at times, but he's not Jason. Jason is legitimately funny. Travis, and I say this lovingly, but he's kind of like more the meathead of the two. And that's an endearing meathead. It's not like, obnoxious meathead. He's just,
the younger brother,
Yeah,
right?
He's got that younger brother kind of meatheady thing going, where Jason's got a little more of the brains of the operation, a little wittier, funnier, sets things up better. Travis is good for a line here and there, but he's not going to be the brains and the smarts behind the operation like Jason can be in a show like this. So ESPN's smart. They're leaning into him. I mean, no one's going to watch Monday Night Countdown because of Jason Kelsey. It's good to have him on there, but nobody watches a countdown show because of anybody. I don't believe, at least. And I say that as a sports
Swifties
fan.
are.
Well, fine. Swifties are. Thank you, Mark. They can learn about the game of football. There's 4 downs. This is what you do after you get to 4th down. You punt it, you kick it. A touchdown's worth 6 points. A field goal's worth 3 points. You're right. The Swifties can learn all that from Jason Kelsey. But for the rest of us who are actually sports fans, I don't think you watch pregame shows because of one analyst in particular. You'll watch a pregame show because that's the network the game is on. This is actually how you get your value out of a guy like Jason Kelsey. Can he drive you an audience late at night on a late-night talk show like this? For guys who are just sitting around and want to consume something that's, frankly, not Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, who in January are going to be doing nothing but complaining about Donald Trump. There is no comedy left for these guys. That's why Greg Gutfeld on Fox is now getting some of the highest numbers on the whole network, because people didn't want Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel going woke with late-night nonsense. It's not funny anymore. If Kelsey can be a little edgy, if he can be humorous, and really not be political, because you don't need to be political to be funny, or you just make fun of everybody, but I assume it's going to be apolitical in nature, it's got potential. I'm not saying I'm going to be locked in because it's going to air at 1 a.m. Eastern time starting on January 4th. So I'll be long asleep by then, but I'll DVR it. I'll check it out. I'll give it a shot. And it could be pretty edgy with how late it's going to be on. So it's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued by this. And I do hope it works out for him. I do. Coming up next, we are going to be joined by Deputy Kenny Buck is going to be here on KCMO. He is the traffic unit and driving instructor for the Platte County Sheriff's Department here on KCMO Talk Radio. Then it's buy, sell, hold as we get to 9 o'clock on 95.7 FM. We're streaming all morning long, of course, on the KCMO Talk Radio app, the iHeart app, and the TuneIn app, and always on 710 AM as well. Pete Mundo live at the Platte County Sheriff's Department.